Hello and welcome to episode 67 of Missed Mando, Ontario's source for the latest in the disc golf world. I'm your host, Robbie Holden, joined by my friend and co-host, Galen Naidu-Harris. Galen, how you doing? What you been up to since the last time you joined us? I can't even keep track of what episodes you're on and not on at this point.
Who knows, man? I'm here when I'm here. I'm not when I'm not. Podcast quality fluctuates wildly depending on your perspective on my participation. I'm good, man. We as we're recording this are just a couple days off of the Missed Mando Mayhem number 6 at Paris, which we will recap a little bit later on in the episode, but I'm still riding high off that. Raised a crap ton of money for a really good cause to help some First Nations that were affected by the wildfires here in Ontario. Had a blast, as we always do. A course design from the sick and twisted mind of Sean Galbraith is always a fun one to play on. And the energy at those events is always so much fun. I have not had a lot of time for playing disc golf lately, so haven't played in any tournaments. I know you have. I know you've had some great results, so why don't we throw it over to you? I just basically have recorded this episode, and we did the Miss Mando Mayhem a couple days ago, and that is like everything I've done in disc golf since I was here last, which is a while ago. Robbie, the champ is here. Tell us about your life, brother.
Champ is here. The champ is here. First, before we even get into that, I was out at Canadian Nationals, traveled out to Grand Prairie, Alberta. That is where I was. If you watched the last episode of the show, that is where I was when I recorded that, and we had Brady Belanger come on and join us from like 20 feet away from me because he was one of my travel partners for that event. So that was an absolute blast. And then we will get into it a little more, but I know we're a little spoiler alert. We're going to lose Galen for part of this episode because it is almost 10 p.m. local time here, and he has a wife and child. So yes, the rockabye baby. So I will spoil a little thing here, and I will mention, because I want to talk about it with my boy, that I went out to Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, more specifically St. Joseph Island, just south of Sault Ste. Marie for the Northern Ontario Championship. Took down the win in MA1, got this nice trophy here, doubles as a cutting board, so you can cut up your victory cheese and meats right on the board. Absolutely fantastic, and had a blast. I went out looking for a top 3 finish so I could qualify for provincials finally. Came away with the win, a hard-fought battle. I was down by 7 strokes at one point in the final round, fought back and won by 2. Epic battle. So a lot of fun there, but that's really been all I've been up to. I know you like to brag on your MA3 Dreammaker win, but I'm starting to stack up some more MA1 trophies behind me here, buddy.
Dude, I'm always blown away. I've got, I don't even have a trophy from Dreammaker. I have look at my little trophy case here. I got a dinky, second place at the Toronto Open. I got a third place Abbey Gardens. But yeah, I won that, and it's like one of those, you go somewhere, it's like I went all the way to, Dreammaker, and all they gave me was this stupid t-shirt, but all I got was a merch out voucher, so I got nothing. Your trophy case is growing, my man, and it's got some very impressive trophies in it, so always proud of you, buddy, and especially proud of that.
I appreciate you, my man. And yeah, this is the biggest one that I've gotten so far. I mean, it overtakes my full face if I hold it in front of me. So it's a little precarious to sit on the shelf behind me. But I make it work. I make it work. We have quite a busy show. We are going to lose Galen at some point, but we are just coming off of finishing recording a absolutely incredible interview with the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Nate Sexton, the sexy half of Big Sexy Commentary. Absolutely mind blown that we had the opportunity to interview Nate. You'll hear me mention it a couple times how much him and Germ as a part of the Jomez team meant to me getting into disc golf and helped me really fall in love with the game, and to the point where now I'm hosting this podcast here talking about disc golf every day. So without further ado, let's jump right into that interview. We will be right back on Missed Mando with Nate Sexton. Our next guest joined the PDGA in 2001, collected an MA2 win, 4 MA1 wins, and came north of the border in 2003 to London, Ontario for the Junior World Championships, where he averaged 962 rated over 7 rounds, absolute grind, to take down the win by 10 strokes for his first major title. He got his first pro win at the 2005 Full Sail Whistling Discs in Roseburg, Oregon, won multiple events in each of the next few seasons, and got his first A-tier win at the 2009 Fort Steilacoom Open, winning by 3 strokes over friend of the show Chandler Fry. The wins kept racking up over the seasons to go along with countless podium finishes, leading into a big year, 2017, where we saw the debut of the legendary Big Sexy commentary team on Jomez Pro, and in October, he got the biggest win of his career, winning USDGC by 5 strokes for his first pro major title. In 2018 and 2019, he came back to Canada, winning back-to-back Canadian national titles in PEI. In 2025, he won his first Masters major at the Tim Selinsky U.S. Masters, and so far in 2026, he has a win at the Memorial and MP40, continues to occasionally play on the Pro Tour, and most recently, he finished second at the Canadian National Championships in Grand Prairie, Alberta. It is an absolute honor to welcome to the Missed Mando podcast, the sexy half of Big Sexy commentary from Salem, Oregon, Nate Sexton. Nate, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you. Nice trip down memory lane with the career highlights.
It was quite a blast doing a big deep dive on your PDGA page as I was getting prepped for this interview, but specifically the intro. I pride myself on bringing some good intros to the podcast, so I hope I lived up to it for you there. But as we like to do with our first-time guests on the pod, and this is probably a story that's been told plenty of times, but I actually don't know. Let's take things back to the start of your disc golf journey. When did you first discover disc golf, and who or what originally got you introduced to the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a bit of a Frisbee family in that my parents were like ultimate players. So even when I was like a little toddler, I was on the sidelines of games, and I'm told I was slinging forehands, before I was talking. So I was around Frisbees most of my life, but we didn't have a disc golf course in my town. So we would already play, a version of disc golf with ultimate discs when we would go camping with my dad. We'd bring enough discs for everybody, and we would take turns picking targets and play. We would bring discs when we would go on like rafting trips. We'd throw between the rafts and just, play catch and everything. And I was really eager to, play ultimate. I remember the rule my dad made was that I had to weigh 100 pounds before I could play in the city league ultimate, and then so once I crossed that threshold, then I was in there and playing ultimate. And thankfully, a disc golf course got put in the same park where we played our ultimate games, and that went in 1999. And I had probably had a little bit of experience with disc golf before that, but only a little, like at a random time. I think we had like a outdoor school week in 6th grade, and I remember the camp that we all went to had disc golf baskets. So I got to play on those, and that might have been the first time I played on baskets. But then once the course went into our town, then it was a pretty easy transition for me, to want to play disc golf as well. And I continued playing ultimate through high school and into college, and then eventually I kind of transitioned to disc golf as my primary passion, largely because the better I got at ultimate, the more money I had to spend, and the better I got at disc golf, I started actually like making my rent money, and I was going, holy cow, like, I'm pretty good at this. And, at that point I was already junior world champion, but I was kind of dipping my toes into playing professionally, and, just kind of couldn't believe that hobby was starting to actually pay my bills a little bit. So that made me want to do it all the more.
Yeah, that makes sense. And thinking back to those early years in the sport, as the national tour was only just beginning and way before the big boom, the massive popularity increase during COVID, like what was the local disc golf scene like in those early days?
We had a really strong series that was just called the Oregon Series, and it was probably the equivalent. I think they were probably PDGA B tiers and C tiers, but there was maybe like 6 or 7 tournaments, all over Oregon, and they were kind of run by the same people, at least coordinating the series. And then there was local TDs, and so that was kind of the priority tournaments that I was trying to play back then. It was going around to these Oregon Series events, and early on I was playing those as an amateur. We would go as it was like a family camping trip. My brother would play, my dad would play, my stepmom would play. And we would go, around and try new courses and travel around the state a little bit. And it felt like a really welcoming and fun community. Everybody, I don't remember any real issues. Everybody was excited, and we were having fun learning and getting a chance to see the guys that were kind of local pros or Oregon level pros back then that were, in hindsight, like 980 players. But they seemed unbelievable, to me at that time. And then it was 2001 when Scott Stokely came and did a clinic in my hometown. And I went to that, and that was the first time I ever saw somebody like truly rip a disc. And that, like, I didn't even use the X step until I saw Scott Stokely. So it was in 2001 that I was like, okay, like it might be worth taking this. It wasn't even that it was worth taking it more seriously. It was like, I so badly want to throw one like that. That went 500 feet, and it just like blew my mind. So, a credit to him for putting time back into the game and traveling all around, because I'm sure he inspired a lot of people besides just me. But that was kind of it for me. Playing those local tournaments, playing some little stuff around in my hometown that probably wasn't even PDGA sanctioned, just with the local club. And then just kind of, that competitive fire. I've always been a competitive person and an athlete, so it was just fun to try to, beat the course and, by extension, the people that were in my division.
Totally. Yeah. And this probably is going to make you feel a little old, so I apologize in advance. But for me, that person, and he's actually, I think he's like several years younger than me, but like Thomas Gilbert, he's, our local Ontario pro, and I saw him sling a disc, whatever it was, 550, 600 on a football field. And I was like, oh my God, we're not playing the same sport, but I want to play whatever he's playing.
Yeah. It's just, I think that's also a big benefit, now, in the YouTube era, which we've been in for quite a long time, but we certainly were not in when I started. Just the opportunity to have your mind cracked open in terms of what you should be thinking is possible, I think is a big part of why we have so many long throwers coming in now, young players, because it's like, if at age 10 you realized that was possible, that helps, because like I had no idea. I was already in high school, and then I saw it, but there was not a way to really consume disc golf. I remember getting VHSs for Christmas to watch like the World Championships and watch USDGC and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you set up, it's almost like you have access to our show notes, because you set up perfectly for this next question, and maybe even already half answered it. But I was going to say, when I was getting more and more into disc golf, I was fortunate enough, we had YouTube. I was able to find Joe Mez with engaging and informative commentary from you and Germ, which helped deepen my love for the game. And Galen and I have both said this, but not to make you feel old or anything, but when you started, not only was Jomez 9 years from being created, YouTube itself was 2 years away. So who were some of the people that helped you fall in love with the game early? Would you say it was Scott Stokely? Were there any others that come to mind?
Oh, definitely. I only met Scott the one day. He did inspire me for sure, but we didn't have a relationship or anything. I was just some random kid. A little bit later on, Dave Feldberg and Avery Jenkins moved to Oregon to go to the University of Oregon, which was about 45 minutes from where I lived, and pretty close to where I live now, to be honest. And those guys were some of the best players in the world, and it was right at the kind of time when I was about to turn pro. So I got to see them a little bit. I got to pretty immediately compete with them. I think the second tournament I ever played as a pro was my home course tournament, and they both came and played, and Avery won, and I got second, and Dave got third. And I remember thinking like, okay, like maybe I can do this. You know, these guys, these are the best players. I mean, obviously I had the advantage of being on my home course, but I hung right in there with them. You know, so then I was thinking that right away I was 1,000 rated. My rating jumped like 20 points. I was right at the same time when I had like enough autonomy to like take my little Mitsubishi truck and go to a tournament where a couple hours away just because I wanted to when I was like 19. So it was an exciting time, you know, and those guys played a part inspiring me, as well as, you know, those local guys I mentioned earlier. You know, a guy like Eric Buck Smith, who's unfortunately passed away, but was a local Oregon pro, you know, a guy that I saw throw incredible shots. A good friend of mine still, Corey Coates, was a guy that I remember being around like a practice basket with when I was an am and he was a pro, and just being like, oh my God, this guy putts so hard. He's making every practice putt. Like that kind of stuff just kind of lit the fire under me to want to improve.
Totally. Do you remember what some of your go-to discs were back then? Like, is there a world in which you still have any of them? I'm guessing no, but...
Oh, I mean, I still own them. I don't throw them anymore. But
I figured, yeah.
Yeah, they're in boxes. But no, I was a big time Valkyrie guy. So it was like my first ace ever was with the first run DX Valkyrie. So like when the Valkyrie was brand new. And for a while there, like the thing we would do when we were leaving town to go to a tournament, I would be like, Dad, we got to go by the store so I can get a new JK Valkyrie. And then that would just be my main dog the whole week, you know, so I would just get a new one and play that one. And that'd be my main driver. I remember when I first set the course record at my home course, the first time I got it, I threw Valkyrie all 18 tee shots.
That's amazing. Do you remember what you were putting with back then, or like a go-to mid-range?
I was really heavy forehand then, so I wasn't that into mid-ranges.
Yeah.
Early in my career, I was using like drivers for the short approaches. I remember really early on, I would rather throw a tomahawk than a backhand, like for a drive if I wanted it to go left. So I wasn't doing a whole lot of. I was throwing some short backhands, but I would putt with Omegas. I remember I had some of those Omega super softs.
I'm not going to lie to you, Nate. I don't even know what an Omega is.
It's a Millennium.
Exceeds my disc golf knowledge.
It's like an AVR, but they used to make them in like a very rubbery plastic. So It was like AVR shaped, but extremely rubbery. So I liked those. But yeah, DX AVRs pretty soon after that. I had DX AVRs. I remember liking the Millennium JLS, which is a disc you don't hear much about anymore. And yeah, I remember the first Firebird I got, I thought like, well, what's the point of this? Like this thing doesn't even fly. But pretty soon I gained a little more power and started to really like those. The other disc that I was super into when it first came out was the Orc, because that was a pretty different level of stability. When you come from Valkyrie and then the Orc came out, I was like, whoa, this thing can handle some torque. So you could really hammer that with the forehand, and that was a disc that I really, really liked.
Yeah, and this is all pre-flight numbers too. So I like the first time I ever picked up a disc was probably around 2008 thereabouts. I was playing just out with cousins that wanted to drink beer, but I was like, no, this disc thing you're doing while you're drinking the beer is actually really fun. Yeah. And like went to the local store and I was like, I need your best disc. And the guy was like, that's not really how this works. But I was like, no, but I just started playing. Give me the best one. And it was a Discraft Elite Z Wasp was what he gave me.
Okay, yeah, nice.
And so I had a Wasp, I had a Cyclone, and it's just like super long range driver, mid range disc, and you just figured it out because that's what it was like.
For sure.
So this is kind of pulling it back a little bit more, but we did want to delve into your time when you've been up north of the border here. So as you mentioned in the intro, 2003, you came to London, Ontario, the greatest London, of course, in the world, which is only about an hour from us, for Junior Worlds, getting the win, your first major title. Do you remember anything about was that your first time playing in Canada? Anything stick out to you from that trip?
It had to be my first time playing in Canada. I would say it was probably my first time getting on an airplane to play disc golf. So, I had just graduated high school. My dad and I flew to Detroit. We brought like tents and stuff to camp. So we rented a car in Detroit. We drove to London. I think we camped out at one of the courses. I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest. I didn't know how many. I could probably see the pre-registration. There really wasn't that many people there because it was maybe one of the only times that they had done a standalone Junior Worlds. I think they do that now, but back then that had never been done. It was always like attached to the Amateur Worlds, and this was a standalone tournament. So there really wasn't that many people there. But I remember there were some good players. I wasn't quite the highest rated player in the field, I don't think. And so I was just excited to see what was going on and to meet some other kids that love disc golf. And I remember it was quite a few courses to practice. I remember having my first poutine when I was up there. My dad, caddying for me and hanging out. It was really fun and ended up, playing well, shooting 1,000 rated round or two, I think, and getting into a pretty comfortable win by the end.
Yeah, I just looking at the PDGA page for it now, there were 29 total players in the field, 13 of which were in your division, Junior 1, and you weren't the highest rated in the field. That honor belonged to local, Toronto Island legend, Kim Scott Wood.
Yes, I remember him for sure.
Yep. But you took it down by 10 strokes in the end. Do you remember what courses they were? Was it River's Edge in London? And I'm probably some St. Thomas courses. I'm guessing VA Barry was probably a course you would have played.
Yeah, man. I can't quite remember the names of the course. I can remember some like isolated little images of what they were like. I remember a lot of like long grass at the edges of the fairways, and one of the courses was kind of in like I feel like it was kind of playing in like a little drainage area because a lot of the holes were like on this slanted side slope thing that we were kind of moving around in between. But no, I can't remember the names of the courses. I wonder if that data is somewhere in the PDGA page where you could kind of see like what they were, but I don't know. I think it was at least 3 of them, maybe even 4.
That would make sense. I know London has a good course and St. Thomas has 2 courses. I mean, who knows what they were, if there was even additional courses back then that maybe got removed before I would be familiar with it. But it definitely did excite me when I was looking it up on the PDGA and I saw that your first major in your career happened in our neck of the woods up here north of the border, which I love to see. And obviously not the first time that you've won something north of the border, but I'll ask that in a little bit. Something before we get to that, and something I'm always curious to ask different pros because it can differ between everyone, is about the decision to actually turn pro. You only played 15 events in AM or junior divisions before going pro, but you also won 6 of those events, so pretty successful in those divisions. So what went into your decision to jump into MPO?
Oh, I think it was pretty easy transition in that I was feeling pretty dominant in the amateurs, at a certain point. I had won the Junior Worlds, but I wanted to try the Amateur Worlds. So I waited a whole nother year and I went and played at the Amateur Worlds and I took 4th place in a huge field, actually in Des Moines where I am currently. Wow. And was able to make the final there. And I knew that was going to be my last amateur tournament, regardless how I played. But I was just getting to a point where my game was out on the level of the pros in my area. It wasn't on the level of the amateurs anymore. So it was an easy thing and something I was excited to do. I didn't put a whole lot of thought into like not doing it or holding on to my amateur status any longer because I was eager to get better and I just wanted to play against better players and test myself. So that, and I'd moved out and I had rent to pay. So it was like an awesome little silver lining that I could go out on the weekends and do what I wanted to do anyway and potentially make a little bit of money. Was really fun.
Yeah, I can only imagine as a, amateur 899 rated player making money doing the thing I love. Jealous.
Yeah.
So disc golf in the early 2000s, I think we all on the podcast find really fascinating because The GGPT didn't exist yet. The national tour only debuts in 2003. But there were still big, like really prestigious A tiers, even B tiers sometimes, with really loaded fields. So I'm curious, thinking back, what were some tournaments that you felt like were your first like really big wins? Because they don't jump out as being on like, an elite series of DGPT because we don't have that frame of reference. So what felt like, wow, this is like next level?
Yeah, I mean that A tier that you guys mentioned, I know that was a big deal to me to win an A tier. I remember I lost it pretty fantastically the year before, I think, in a playoff where I think I was up 2 with 2 to play. And a great Portland player, Tim Skellinger, he made a big 80-footer, and then he birdied the last hole, and I think we went to a playoff and I lost. And I remember like just kind of walking into the woods and crying by myself because I was just that broken by not coming through because I thought I had it won. So that was, compared to today's tournaments, it doesn't seem that prestigious. It just had that A tier designation, probably had $1,000, that you could win. But it was still like a feather in the cap, so I think that was one for me. I don't know that I would call them next level, but 2007, I remember being really proud because I won the point series for Oregon, Washington, and Idaho all in the same year. So I was driving all around to all these B tiers, and I played 5. You had to play 5 in Washington to qualify for the points, and I went 5 times and won 5 times. So I had perfect 500 score there, and I went to Idaho and won a couple tournaments. So that was like something I was proud of, that I was able to just kind of dominate the local pro scene in all those states that year. But then, I guess my breakthrough moments weren't wins after that. It was kind of like 2008 taking 5th place at the World Championships and kind of being like, or was it 2009? I think it might have been 2009. 2008 taking 5th place at the Japan Open. And getting to go to Japan to play disc golf, and then taking 5th at a major, and either I think I might have beat Ken Climo, and maybe Nate Doss as well that tournament, and just that kind of thing was what felt like breakthroughs more than I could say a certain win, because at that point the only thing that would have been a breakthrough was beating those big name guys for me, and I don't know that it took me a while before I did that while winning. It was just beating one of them at a time, maybe getting a 3rd place, but I wasn't quite at a level where I was going to win against the guys who were career players. I was like working part-time, and playing. But I never was like a tour guy back then because, my wife and I have been together since high school. So I was never like just a single 20-year-old like going out on the road. Who cares? I always had home to go back to. So I would like travel a little bit, do a few tournaments here and there. But it was a long time. I actually never thought I would go on full tour. But I'm sure we're going to get to that portion of the interview a little bit later on.
Well, jumping ahead a bit in your touring career to I would say your biggest win, 2017 United States Disc Golf Champion. 9 years later, what feelings jump out to you right away when you hear that statement now?
Oh, pride more than anything. That was like that's for sure. It's not even close in terms of the biggest win of my career. I mean, that's for sure it. And will forever be it. I'm never going to beat that in terms of an achievement in disc golf. I'm not even convinced you can beat it, to be honest. I mean, I know that the World Championship has more clout, but it's kind of random. It's kind of like for no reason, in my opinion. Like the World Championship is elevated to kind of a ridiculous level just because it's a 5-rounder and it is the Worlds, but it's all the same guys and everybody wants to win it just as bad as the other majors. So for me, it's right up there, and it was like an achievement that, for me, it like validated a lot of the decisions that I had made. Some of them kind of risky, some of them like looked upon by my parents as like kind of crazy. I think sometimes when I was sort of trying to prioritize disc golf as I kept getting older, and it was touch and go sometimes where I wasn't quite sure if I would. Keep chasing it, or if I would kind of be more of a weekend warrior and try to work a regular job a little bit more. because at a certain point you kind of have to look in the mirror and go, man, I'm like 27 now. Like, am I gonna, what am I doing here? Am I gonna start preparing for the future, or am I just gonna keep having fun and scraping by? So it was a achievement that made it feel like all those choices were right choices. And I'm not sure if I would be able to say that as easily without having done that and without being able to kind of ride the wave that came on the back end of that and be able to, reap the benefits of having some success at the absolute top level.
Well, you played great through the entire event and shot back-to-back hot rounds in the second and third round to go into the final round with a 3-stroke lead. But right behind you was Ricky Wysocki, who was world number 1 at the time and coming off back-to-back world titles. On the same day as final round, though, a hurricane was making landfall in Mississippi that just so happened to be called Hurricane Nate. Now, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious, and that sounds like some magic in the air to me. Were you feeling like you were bringing your own Hurricane Nate to Winthrop?
Oh, man, I was nervous. I think the story that's got to be told is that 2015 USDGC, the year that Macbeth had one of the greatest seasons ever and won the Grand Slam, I also had a 3-stroke lead heading into the final round of the USDGC.
Oh.
And I was up 3 on Macbeth and Wysocki. And I was joking with him, man, sorry, I got to be the one to ruin your Grand Slam. Like, that's tough, because we were touring partners. We had spent that entire year together. And I think he beat me by 14 in the final round. So it was also a very rainy day all of a sudden. I think I still shot 1,000 rated round, but only barely. Like well over par, and I think I got 4th, but like just absolutely wilted in that chance with that opportunity kind of on the table for me. So then 2 years later, felt really fortunate and happy with my game to get into a position where I was up by 3 again, and I remember thinking to myself, well, it's only Rick this time, it's not both of them, because those were the guys, and in some ways continue to be the guys. But back then, for sure, those were the 2 guys. I was ranked number 3 in the world for a few different times, and it wasn't a close third. There was a gulf between 1 and 2 and down to third, whoever the guy was who was popping up and was in third at the moment. But I remember thinking, yeah, it's only Rick this time. Try to learn from my mistakes. And he bogeyed hole 1 and I birdied, and then he bogeyed hole 3 and I birdied. And then I was up by 7. And I remember sort of like my internal self-talk was like, you'll never get a better opportunity than this. If you don't win this, you'll never win, is what I remember telling myself. And it wasn't like, I was just trying to be determined and, stay confident, because I still didn't feel like it was in the bag. I had failed more times than I'd succeeded with opportunities like that. It's a really hard thing mentally to continue to deliver when you're being chased down by, the best players in the world. And when they don't have the pressure of holding the lead, they're just in attack mode. But yeah, when I was up 7, I thought, this doesn't happen to anybody. This is a huge lead, in a major championship. And I was thankfully able to, stay in the moment. And I don't think I went out of bounds. I think I just stayed solid, and I made a few strategic decisions to lay up at times, kind of make Ricky try to come and get me, and thankfully I played well enough that it was really not possible for anyone to beat me. I think I shot every round in the 50s that year, 35 under, I think, or something like that for the tournament. So it's the best I ever played there, probably the best I've ever played in my life, considering, whatever, doesn't even matter what the ratings were. They were high, but USDGC is weird about ratings anyway. But the fact that I was able to stand up in that pressure and eventually get what ended up being a comfortable win. It never really felt that way to me in the moment. But yeah, walking up hole 18 was like, holy cow, I could go out of bounds now. It doesn't even matter. I'm so far ahead. Because I think I was up 6 going into that hole, because I bogeyed that hole on purpose. I was probably about 18 feet away for my par, and I went to lay it up, and Ricky was like, no, dude, you should putt out last. And I was like, oh, no, I'm like, I don't think he could even fathom laying up an 18-footer. But I was like, no, I told my caddy, I'm not putting. If I'm not in the bullseye, I'm not putting, because I just felt like I knew I was going to win. but I just didn't want my legs felt like jello, and my vision was like rimming off the basket, rolling OB, laying up, still winning by 2, but in this sheepish kind of like, weird, I just wanted the moment to be nothing but success and happiness. And, my wife was there, my baby daughter was there. She was only 4 months old, I think, at the time. So, laid that one up and was able to make the bogey and still win by 5.
I rewatched that round today in preparation for
nice.
this interview, and I think 18 feet. No, you didn't go OB. The drive was great, and then just a nice little layup. And the basket was actually further up the hill from what it is now at typical USDGC. Where it's down the hill a little bit. But you played inbounds, and I think 18 feet might even be stretching a little bit. You were like half a step outside of the bullseye.
Yeah, it wasn't bullseye. That's all I know. I remember I said, I'm not putting this unless it's in the bullseye.
And it did kind of make me giggle, Ricky trying to say like, no, he wanted you to have the last one. You're just like, no, just let me do this. Let me put it here real fast. But yeah, it was like 12 feet at max, but that's the best 12-foot layup that you'll ever have in your career. So,
And of course, there's that iconic moment, of you hoisting up your baby in the air on the 18th green. How old was she then? Do you remember?
I think 4 months. I mean, she was born in June, and that was October. So somewhere in there, somewhere around 4 months.
Yeah, I've got my first now, and she's just over 14 months now. Or actually, sorry, she's 14 months tomorrow.
Nice.
But it feels like we've been saying 14 months for like a week. So
yeah, sure.
But yeah, it's just so special, man. So you've mentioned your wife a few times. We're talking now about your daughter. How much has it meant to you to have your family with you on this journey? Because as you said, you had a high school sweetheart. You had your wife or wife-to-be, depending on where you are, in the journey with you the whole time. How special was it on that journey, but then also to have them there at that biggest moment when you won?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, I've often felt like it was no coincidence that when I won, that was right when we had the baby. And so my wife was taking a year off from medical school, and I bought my own RV. So then I wasn't traveling with Paul anymore. I had them on the road with me. And I think that was the happiest I ever was playing disc golf, because I wasn't missing home. I was like, my people were there with me, and my RV was my home at that time. So that's the push and the pull of it for me, and always has been, where I kind of like, I enjoy my time out on the tour, but I'm almost always kind of dreading it like 2 days before. Like I'm on a 2-week trip right now. 2 days before this, I wasn't like, oh, nice, I get to go play in Des Moines and Minneapolis. I'm like, man, like, I wish you guys could come with me, but it's like, it's a lot of sitting alone in hotel rooms. Disc golf only takes like 3 or 4 hours. And the whole rest of the time is just like twiddling my thumbs, just not wanting to get too tired. If there's some cool thing to go see in the town, I'll go do that. But a lot of towns don't have much to see. So it's like, you're just kind of killing time. And it is awesome. Once I get out here, I always have fun. And I recognize the privilege of having this career, and I've been able to see a lot of the world, and I get to throw Frisbees for a living. Like, it's unbelievable. But it's not all roses. There's still some times where you're like, man, if you're playing bad and you're just kind of sitting around somewhere you don't even know anybody, that can be kind of a lonely existence sometimes. So back then when I was traveling with them, that year for the USDGC, I think we got into town like 10 days before the tournament. I remember I was going to the course and just like playing 9 holes because I didn't feel any pressure to like get a full practice round, and so I was just on a different schedule. So I was able to really dial everything in. And then, the results showed. So having them with me then was really cool. I think my wife was too nervous that our daughter would cry, and also too nervous that I would blow it. So she wasn't like out there watching, but she was definitely watching on like the TVs in the clubhouse and trying to hope for the best. I know my mom was like superstitious that she didn't want to watch the scores. She was too worried to watch the scores. So I remember getting to call her afterwards, and she didn't know if I had won or lost. So that was kind of fun to be able to break that news. But no, I mean, the short answer would be, it's really important to me that they were there, and a cool memory to be able to see that footage pop up every once in a while and see that my tiny little daughter was there. I think that's a fun thing for her to see now too, being a 9-year-old, to be like, oh yeah, look at that, that she was there in that moment.
Do you think you could hoist her up the same way these days?
I think I got it. I've been lifting weights. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be as smooth, but yeah, I think I could get her up there. Sure, maybe not much longer.
There we go.
But right now, I got it.
might not last forever.
No, I think not.
So, no. So almost as prestigious as USDGC, at least in our eyes, north of the border, is the Canadian National Championships, which you won back-to-back in 2018 and 2019 in some of the deepest Canadian national fields with Paul McBeth, Chandler Fry, Simon Lizotte, James Conrad, more Americans and Europeans making the trip, along with obviously a ton of Canadians, including Thomas Gilbert, Marty Hendel, Casey Hannemeyer. Hillcrest Farms, still the number one course that I've ever played. It was fantastic when I got to go out there, and probably at least once a week I get a craving for a PEI hand pie.
Oh yeah.
What was your experience like on the island, and what memories pop out when you think of those two Canadian national titles?
Oh, it was awesome. I think the event staff, Ben was the TD, and I think they reached out, and were offering us a chance to come up there. I think it was like one of those things where, the lodging was taken care of and they were just trying to entice us to come up. And that's a pretty easy yes for me when people offer me the opportunity to come see a part of the world that I likely would never otherwise see, meet some new people, play some new courses, play a prestigious tournament. So yeah, the first one was really exciting and I was happy to get the win. The second one, I think I would count probably like it could be a top 5 win of my whole career, because it was McBeth, Lizotte, Conrad, Fry, very strong field. So, and I had some really, really good rounds. So that probably slots in there pretty high. I have that USDGC. I won that Ledgestone, the DGPT. Those are certainly top 2. After that, it's like I won the Las Vegas one time, but I'm not sure the field was like McBeth wasn't there. So that alone, it doesn't really matter. McBeth is worth 10 other guys, in terms of just beating him is there. I can count on probably 2 hands the times that I've been able to beat him, and only one hand the times that I've been able to beat him and hoist the trophy for a win. So you're beating him not because he's having a bad week. Sometimes you can sneak in there and beat somebody, but anytime I beat him in that era, it was a sign I was playing phenomenal.
Oh, and that's what I was going to say, was not only beating Paul McBeth, but beating 2019 Paul McBeth, where I think that's one of the greatest seasons of all time that he put together that year. Yep. So prime McBeth, huge win. What do you remember about like the course, and was it just on Hillcrest, or were there other courses involved as well? I know Hillcrest is the one that obviously stands out. It was rated really high on UDisc for years.
Yeah, both years we also played one called Huckett that was a private course. It was fun as well. I think it was this. Which year was it that it was like a hurricane? That must have been the second year.
That was going to be my next question as well. That was the second year when the final round for AMs got canceled, and like an army of people went out with chainsaws early in the morning to try and clean up the course so the pros could finish out.
Yes, and we were staying in these little cottages at the seaside, and it was like I was like talking to the TD like we can't play, and it was nicer inland, but where we were, I was like walking outside like, no, this is not possible. It was like the wind was like 60 miles an hour, and there's something crazy like that. We were throwing something like I remember Thomas throwing one straight up that went like 600 feet backwards because the wind was so strong. So I was thinking, no way we're playing. Like, this is ridiculous. This is dangerous. And we're hearing about down trees. But the weather thankfully got a little bit better. I know that they were working like crazy to get because multiple trees fell right then. So they were working so hard. There were trees over the road in places. But yeah, thankfully we were able to play, finish the tournament. And I remember it was actually pretty nice weather for the final round in the end, which was pretty surreal, waking up that morning and going through the night before where we're like losing power. I think one of the windows in the cottage broke because of the wind. Like something hit one of the windows and the window broke in the night. So it was like, it was a serious storm.
One of the more unique tournament experiences through a long history of tournament experiences, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I can only imagine, yeah. And speaking of speaking of Thomas, Thomas Gilbert is a great friend of ours here on the podcast. He suffered through our first ever episode, and was our first ever guest that we had on. And I know that you know Thomas pretty well as well. You know, I know you've traveled with him on tour. Curious, how did you first meet him, and how did you guys end up on the road together? And any memories that jump out?
Yeah, I think he remembers this better than I do because, I was a big star at the time or whatever. He was a young kid, so he came to like some of our clinics. Like I was running these Sexton shootouts and we were running McBeast challenges, and we did like the Jomez Final Nines. And he came to some of those. I remember him making it in the Jomez Final Nine, that we did like a Sexton shootout Jomez Final Nine combination thing in Emporia. And I remember he made it in the final. So I'm doing live commentary as those guys are playing. And that was kind of their reward, as they were going to get to be in a little Jomez video. So I have memories of him then. I remember Maple Hill when I kind of knew him, and we had our RV. And he was just kind of hanging out. He was the type of kid. He was wanting to touch every single disc that I had in my RV. He wanted to look through all of them, touch all of them, see everything. He was just crazy about the discs and disc golf in general, just super excited. And I can remember my wife going like, "Who is this guy that's in the RV?" Like, because he was just like very friendly kid, but also like just kind of, "Hey, hi, yeah, I'll come in, yeah." And just like, he was just sitting in there, and my wife was like, didn't know him. But, he was harmless, and it was, fun to have him. And then we kind of just, I started like sharing, if I had a hotel room with any space, I'd share some space with him if he was out on the road, and just playing practice rounds together, because I saw a lot of potential in him, and, he was a nice guy. So I was happy to share my time with him and try to see if I could coach him up a little bit.
Well, and you definitely did, because I know I mentioned earlier that he was the first person I saw throw that made me go like, wow. And one of the first things that he was teaching in the clinic was the Sexton hop for the forehand. So
nice.
Yeah, stuck with him for sure.
Nice.
I guess it would help if I unmuted myself before I tried to talk. And we actually have, I messaged Thomas before we started this, and I asked him if there was anything that I should ask you. And he's got 2 questions for you. The first one, he just said, ask him about Bingo Bango Bongo and how it helps his competitive mentality. I'm curious to hear the answer to this.
Yeah, he wants me to get playing that again. I would like to. That was an era for me in kind of like COVID times, and maybe a little before, when I was living in Olympia, Washington. My wife was in residency, and Chandler Fry lived there as well, and also my other buddy, Chris May. And we would just play this game, Bingo Bango Bongo, against each other all the time. That was like a points game of disc golf, where you could get points for being the CTP, points for being the solo winner of the hole, and points for like making putts outside the circle, basically. There was some convoluted rules in there and bonus points and stuff. I honestly can't remember the exact rules at the moment, but we would only play for like quarters. But we would play like multiple times a week. So we were playing a bunch, and it was really good because I don't really care how much I'm playing for. I just got to be playing for something. So, on a terrible day, you might be able to lose like $8 or $9. Like, it wasn't like you were going to really break the bank. But it was just so many 40-footers for 50 cents, all the time, every time we ever played. And that just sharpened my skills. I would credit that to me winning the Las Vegas Challenge in 2020, because I came out that season, first event of the season, and I had just been playing all winter with those guys, just kind of staying sharp. And yeah, I was able to win that tournament against a pretty strong field, and play really, really well. So that was a really fun time. And Thomas even came and played with us sometimes. He came a couple times where he would like stay a week or two at my house, and we would do some training and just kind of play a bunch of disc golf. Yeah, he came and got in on the action with us a little bit.
I'm sure like some of the insider games that I have with my buddies over the years, that have been going on for years. The rules have evolved so much over the years. It's probably hard to even keep track of the point structure and everything that you guys did in that. But
Yeah.
I love that. I think I need to start bringing some quarters out to the course with me and start having some low stakes, but
Yes.
something on the line, little battles against my friends.
It helps. You just get some little bit of trash talk and just playing under. Playing under pressure. It's not a whole lot of pressure, but it's like plenty enough, because nobody wants to lose to their buddies. So it doesn't matter how much money it's for. It just matters that you're competitive and that there's something on the line that somebody can talk trash about later.
Exactly. And somehow I actually didn't think about asking about this beforehand, so I didn't write this in the show notes, but I'm going to deviate and ask this now because it's a perfect segue from Trash Talk. You are fantastic on the mic in the Central Coast Champs versus Chumps series, which has been going on for years now, and I was actually fortunate enough to get to play one hole in the most recent edition in Grand Prairie, Alberta. Very excited to see when that comes out. You really don't realize, when you're so used to just watching them, you really don't realize you can hardly hear you at all when you're out there. I'm so used to your trash talk being so like right in my ear when I'm watching them. Sure. So I'm very interested to actually watch it and hear what you said, because my drive wasn't very good. But how much have you enjoyed the doing that over the years and the evolution of Champs versus Chumps?
Man, it's really fun. I actually think I need to start being a little meaner again. I think I'm getting too nice, but
you went too easy on the juniors out in Grand Prairie. I'll say that.
I try to be really extra nice when it's for young players or really new players. I always have kind of a hard time really going after female players as well. Like, it just doesn't feel as fun to like lay on some real serious trash talk. But I probably should. I don't know. That's people know what they're getting into, hopefully, at this point. But that's been a fun series for sure. Definitely something I never would have thought I could get paid to do, just walking around and making fun of people for trying their hardest. But it's pretty funny for sure.
It's some of the best content in disc golf. Honestly, I love watching them. And I am one little follow-up on Champs versus Chumps. I'm curious if you remember. It is, to me, the most iconic Champs versus Chumps shot. And it came, I believe, in one of the Canadian editions as well. And poor lady grip locked it and almost took somebody's head off right beside the camera. I've watched that video so many times. Do you remember that being there for that shot?
That was in Maine, so almost Canada.
Oh, okay, it was Maine. True.
Yeah, that was in Maine. I was thinking you were talking about that kid Bruno at Smith Lake, because that's definitely one of the shots that comes into my mind in terms of most famous Champs versus Chump shots ever thrown. But yes, that was in Maine. That was pretty crazy. Just straight to the right, and then she had to, in cruel twist of fate, she had to throw again on the very next hole. And whenever I see that footage of the parents pulling their kids back when I realized it was her, because she was about to rip it right again. Yeah.
I can still picture it. I can still picture seeing the parents pulling the children slowly off to the side of the fairway. That image just lives rent free in my head. But speaking about Canadian Nationals, that's what your most recent sanctioned event, I guess I should say, because I believe I saw that you just played this past weekend in an event, but it's not on your PDGA page.
Oh yeah. It was like a friend's birthday party. It's nice. A very unofficial event. The one I played.
Yeah. Okay. So the last, we'll say, official event that you played was, of course, up at Canadian Nationals in Grand Prairie. It was awesome to get to meet you out there. How was your experience at the event?
Oh, I really liked getting to see an area that I never would have gone to before. And it was, again, thanks to the event team reaching out and inviting me to come up and taking care of the logistics for me. So big thank you to them for that opportunity. I enjoyed it. I thought everyone was really nice. I played okay. I spotted Thomas 5 strokes in the first 3 holes, and then I lost by 5. So it was disappointing because I just came out really terrible on the first 3 holes of the tournament. He played phenomenal. Can't take that away from him. He went 3 under. I went 2 over in the first 5, and then that was the final margin. So was disappointing to be that far out of it immediately and not even really, trying to claw my way back. But he played well, deserved the win for sure. Anytime I just don't bring my best stuff, I always just wish I could have done better, but who doesn't,
Yeah, of course. And I'm just sorry, Galen. I know
buddy,
I keep
don't
jumping
worry.
in here, and you haven't asked
just
anything
excited.
in a while.
You're excited we got
I
Nate
am.
Sexton here, so am I.
I am. I got golden retriever energy going. I was just going to ask your thoughts on the courses out there because it was my first time being to Grand Prairie, and it's out there. It is pretty far away from, we'll say, the rest of civilization. And the two courses, I was at MA1, so I was in the same pool as you, played the same courses, and I was impressed with Grand Prairie having two courses like that. What were your thoughts on the two?
Yeah, I mean, for being kind of a newer, I think they've only had disc golf there like not even 15 years. Mm-hmm. So they have a great club and hard workers because, man, that co-op course was a ton of work to put in, I'm sure, and still remained somewhat rough. But, I mean, that's kind of what I was expecting, going that far north and into a smaller community. So I thought that course was really challenging. I think I probably liked the other one a little bit better just from a fun factor. With all the hills and stuff, but it was a little bit on the easy side. But I enjoyed both of them. I thought the courses were cool.
I dig it. I didn't get to experience them like you two, but I've heard awesome things. So transitioning a little bit here, moving over to some of the commentary side of things. I think, certainly Jomez Pro has been one of the biggest reasons for the disc golf boom, the reasons that it's gotten to the popularity it has today. I know for both Robbie and I, Jomez videos are one of the things that got us started down the path of being obsessed with disc golf as we now are, to the point that we have a podcast where we talk pretty much just to each other about it for a couple hours every couple weeks. But a big part of what's made Jomez so great is the legendary Big Sexy commentary team of you and Jeremy Colling. So we're going to get into some Jomez specific stuff, but before we do, just curious about Big Germ. Like, when did you first meet him? What was your first impression? And how has that friendship grown and evolved over the years?
Oh, man, yeah. I mean, the first time I ever remember perceiving him was at a USDGC players party.
I imagine he's pretty easy to perceive. He's a large man.
Oh, yeah. A little too easy, I would say. A little too easy. I remember there was a putting competition going on, and he was standing up by the basket at the front of the room, like sticking his head in the way and then ducking out of the way. And I remember thinking, who is this obnoxious guy? Like, what is this guy? Get out of here. Like, I knew he was a player, but I just thought, man, this guy can't get enough of the spotlight. And I was annoyed with him the first time I ever saw him, I would say. But then, meeting him and getting to know him, he's a great guy. He's just the life of the party. That's just how he is. And we didn't get to start working together till much later, but we were already friends before that, and competitors, and we, respected each other's games, both being kind of the torch carriers for the forehand side of things, for a while there, where we were kind of the two guys that were, throwing the highest level forehands and throwing the most forehands in terms of elite players. And man, yeah, he's had a heck of a career. He's won a bunch of big tournaments, more than I have. When he's playing his best, I think his ceiling, was higher than mine ever was. When Big Germ was in his prime and playing the best he could play, he was throwing at 600 feet. He was, ripping forehands, making putts. He was as good as anybody on the planet, and he showed that many times, winning probably 5 or 6 Elite Series level events, and then obviously his major as well. So fantastic player, one of my better friends, and yeah, really funny, fun-loving, big-hearted individual.
Now that I've had the opportunity to meet you, Nate, I'd say the Big Germ is probably number one on my list of disc golf influences to meet as somebody that, like I've said, Jomez videos and your guys' commentary had such a big impact on me falling in love with the game. So it's really cool to be here with you. And from what I can tell, searching through, and I literally just went back onto Jomez's YouTube, sorted by oldest, and went video by video until I heard your voice. So from what I can tell, you made your commentary debut on coverage for the 2016 World Championships with Steve Hill also on the mic. And then the debut of Big Sexy commentary was at the 2017 Nick Hyde Memorial. Mm-hmm. How did that relationship with the Jomez crew start? And did you ever imagine it would grow into what it's become now, where you're still out filming pre-tournament practice rounds with the fellas?
Yeah, I mean, the Jomez guys were out there filming, and back then I was playing on a lot of lead cards, so I knew them. You know, and we would talk and hey, Mike, is that in bounds? And so I knew those guys. It was Jonathan and Jerry and Mike, and that was it, just the three guys. And I don't know. I think I might have even done commentary for them even before that. I know the 2016 Worlds was the first time I ever got paid to do commentary. But I don't know when it was that Macbeth and I did a commentary, and we did the silly skit with the Red Bulls. Maybe you guys have seen that at the open of a Jomez video. And, at first I did commentary for Central Coast. I did, some for Jomez, and it didn't even cross my mind that you could get paid, because I knew that they weren't making any money. So it wasn't like there wasn't any money in it. I knew that maybe they got a little off YouTube, or they got paid a little by the tournament, but it was like all they could do just to stay out there and give our sport a little bit of a platform, which I felt like was an important thing to kind of make a record of these tournaments. So when these amazing things happen, we had some video proof of what it was like then, so I wanted to be part of that. And I think they were eager to, have my help. And obviously, commentary or public speaking or whatever, that's something that comes naturally to me. So it was an easy thing for me to do. I didn't have a lot of trouble being in front of the microphone or the camera. That's just something that is easy for me. It's whatever you want to call that. It's some gift that I have. So I was excited to get to do it. I remember thinking, like, I couldn't believe they wanted to pay me to do the Worlds commentary. I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. I would have done it for free, but sure, I'll take some money. And then, Big Germ, I think we were in Texas the first time Germ and I got to work together. And it wasn't like we knew that was going to become something that was going to, be special or anything, but it was exciting to get the chance to work together. And thankfully it kind of grew in terms of your question, like it went way beyond, and it continues to go way beyond anything I ever could have imagined. And I credit, a lot of that early work with the success of the Sexton Firebird, because I think a lot of that was personality based. It was like about my play on the course, but it was also about the fact that I think your average disc golf fan from that era not only feels like, but actually does know me better than they know Paul Macbeth. Because if you spent all that time listening to me, and that's just me, I'm not really putting on much of an act in a Jomez video, other than the fact that sometimes I'm a lot more tired than I'm pretending to be. But I'm just trying to be, earnestly excited about the disc golf that I'm watching, right? So I'm just kind of joking. And I think anybody who watches our stuff knows that we're not, Yuli and Germ and I are not really doing much different than our normal selves. We're talking trash to each other. We're making fun of each other's slip-ups a little bit. We're just kind of watching disc golf and being ourselves. So I think the opportunity that I got there, I didn't really realize how important that was going to be at the time, but I really think that had a lot to do with me becoming like a fan favorite player, somebody that people connected with, which in turn, along with obviously Innova making a fantastic product, allowed the Sexton Firebird to become the most popular disc in the world for a time, which was something that on paper shouldn't be possible, because I was never the best player in the world. Nobody ever would have confused me for the best player in the world. So you wouldn't think that I would be able to achieve that kind of success with my Tour Series disc, but lightning got caught in a bottle somehow between all those factors, and they absolutely changed my life for the better.
You, Nate, you continued to anticipate our line of questioning here very well. I'm going to hold you for one more second on commentary, but we were about to ask you a couple of questions about the Sexy Birds. Robbie and I have also dabbled in some commentary for a very small, modest local channel called Canadian Disc Golf Production. So, we are the same, you and I, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I get like a nice crispy slice of pizza, maybe a couple of breadsticks for my commentary.
Yep.
The notion of pay is still eluding me, but I'm very glad that you got there. But hey, one commentator to another. I'm curious about your approach. Before you step into the booth, is there anything that you do to get ready? Do you make notes, take a look at the scores on the rounds that you're watching? Or you just hang out with your boys and talk about the disc golf?
For Jomez, there's less preparation. Jomez is almost like it's almost nice to not know everything exactly, because then you don't have to pretend that you're seeing it for the first time. Obviously, all the viewers, well, I think almost all the viewers know that it's not live. So it's this kind of funny little song and dance that we do that just kind of became the norm for disc golf. And so usually we know what's going to happen. But I don't like knowing exactly. Like, I'd like to not know how it happened. So I definitely don't dig into the scores that deeply, because I would prefer to give you a real reaction. It's just easier than to go, oh, no way, it bounced OB, because it's just like more work. So the rounds when I'm like commentating on my own USDGC win, those are some of the hardest ones. But they're also, it's nice because then you have all the insights. You can be like, yeah, before he threw this, he said this, and you have like firsthand knowledge, which is nice because that enriches the coverage, I think, and gives people a window into what's going on. For live coverage, I have to do a little bit more prep work, but it's still not that exhaustive. Sometimes I'll be doing live coverage for courses that I've never played. It's not my preference. I don't really like doing that, but sometimes that does happen. So in those situations, often when Thomas was on tour, I was leaning on Thomas. I would have a little 30-minute phone call with him where I'd be like, all right, hole one, give me the lowdown. Like, where's the problem? What do you want to do? Like, because a caddy book can only tell you so much. So I would make notes, with him on the phone, because it's usually when I'm on DGN, just as the color commentator, generally is my job when a drone flyover comes to sort of give a summary of the hole. And you don't necessarily know when that's going to happen. They only throw those in like when there happens to be a little lull in coverage and then they want to go to a drone flight. So I have to be ready, like at the moment's notice that they're going to do a drone flight. And then I have to be able to go, okay, hole 9, 300 feet, and say what the pitfalls are. So then I'll usually make a little note on my computer so that I can jump in there and have like the par and the distance information and a little bit of maybe like if this is a top 3 most difficult hole or something. So I'll have something intelligent to say. And I think there's only more work coming in the future if I'm lucky enough to continue working as a commentator, because every year there's more guys that I've never personally played with on the tour. So it takes some work to kind of be able to have some sense of their strengths and their weaknesses or their personal story, because you can't really get away with it as a commentator going, I have no idea who this guy is. You kind of have to have a little bit of, okay, this guy, is a player out of this area and he's won this, or, but it used to be that I knew everyone and had firsthand experience with everyone who had any kind of chance, because I was week in and week out playing with them for years. Now I'm off the tour more, and when I do come on the tour, I'm not necessarily jumping up on those lead cards too often. So, the best young players, I'm not getting much of a chance to see those guys firsthand. So I expect more work to remain a top quality commentator in the future, because I'll have to be kind of putting in some more legwork to have the information that I need.
I was gonna say, it probably doesn't help that a lot of these guys that are getting so good these days are half your age, Nate, or close to half your age at least. So that probably doesn't help in the learning as well. But I will say that I definitely hope that we do continue to get more and more Nate Sexton on the mic. I think you are definitely one of the best in the game, have been from the start and continue to be to this day when you're on the mic. So I definitely hope that we get some more Nate Sexton. But we are going to, Galen sort of set it up a little bit, and you've been doing a good job setting it up. We, of course, having you on, have to talk about the Firebird. And I would argue that the most iconic disc in disc golf is the signature Glow Sexton Firebird. The collector market on those discs are absolutely insane, and everybody knows the Sexton Firebird. So how did you decide to adopt the Glow Firebird as your signature disc? And did you have a sense it would blow up to the extent that it has?
Absolutely not, in response to the second part of that question. The first part is Glow Firebird. The Glow Firebird was already one of my favorite discs. And I had some tournament fundraiser Glow Firebirds that had been produced around 2005 or 2006 that were my go-to Firebirds. And the Firebirds that Innova was making at the time were these Ken Climo 12 times, and they were like board flat, insanely overstable and insanely stiff, and they were like useless to me. So I was telling when I got the opportunity, to get to advance to the star team level, to join Paul Macbeth on tour, those were huge moments for my career where I was like, I never really thought I would go on tour, but when he called and offered me that opportunity, I remember telling my wife, I don't think I can say no to this chance, because this is the best player in the world with a brand new RV, with a brand new truck that's inviting me to be the touring partner, and all I got to do is pay for half the gas, which wasn't cheap, but was not that expensive. He could have charged me rent. He could have charged me, he was extremely generous in giving me that opportunity. And it was a bit of like I get the feeling it was contingent. My saying yes to that was contingent on me getting the Firebird. Like, I don't think Innova would have promoted me if I was like, no, I'm not going on the road. So it was they'll extend this to me if I kind of fully commit. So that's kind of what happened. I showed them the Firebirds that I was using and said, can we make something close to this? Color Glow was a brand new plastic at the time, and I knew that I wanted my tour series to be a new mold plastic combination. Like, I didn't want Star Destroyer that was on every shelf already. I wanted something that had never been made before. So I liked the feeling of the Color Glow plastic, and I knew it hadn't been done in a Firebird yet. So that was pretty easy for me. Like, I like how soft this is. I want a mellow flying Firebird. I want a Firebird for the people, kind of, where it's overstable, surely, but it's not ridiculous. It's workable kind of from day one as your main overstable disc, but it's not like a trick disc that could only be thrown for thumbers or crazy headwinds. And obviously they did a great job, meeting those specifications and making me that disc. So that's kind of how it came to be, was I want a straighter Firebird. This is what I like, how they feel like, a little softer, and they delivered.
A Firebird for the people. Very well said.
Yep.
And what goes into crafting the perfect design? I mean, we're on year 11 now, so it's got to be at least a bit of a challenge for you and Innova to keep things fresh. But you always do. It always blows us out of the water. So any insights on the design process and how you get to what hits the store shelves?
Yeah, I mean, it's always just sort of like comparing to the year before. I feel like they're like, what do you want us to try to change? And some years I'll say that's too overstable, like let's back off. Then some years I'll say, yeah, let's do a little more overstable. And it's like, then we get kind of this pattern like that. And I like it that way, because then I can have all Sexton Firebirds in my bag. I can have a Halo one for the crazy stuff, and I can have my older ones for most of the work, but they can do all the jobs, because they're, plastic is a little bit of an inconsistent medium. I think it's like there's science and there's also art involved in making these things, and it's shown across all the companies. It's not that easy to take a disc and just for 10 years get the exact same plastic sourced and have the exact same heats and drying times and all your conditions perfect so that you're going to get a consistent flight out of a disc for a long time. The different runs, behave a little bit differently. So generally, my input is just like, hey, I would like it to be a little less or a little more stable. And then obviously I have some say on the artwork each year, where I can kind of say, hey, dial this part up, or I like option 2, let's flush that out, and see what it comes to. Obviously all the artwork is fairly similar over the years, because I want to stay somewhat consistent within the Sexton Firebird branding or whatever, and make it recognizable.
We were going to have a special guest come on to join and ask some questions. He was just on the show with us on our last episode. It's an MP40 player here in Ontario and has the biggest Nate Sexton Firebird collection I've ever seen. Nice. And it's got to be one of the biggest in the world. Hundreds upon hundreds of discs, nice. All Sexton Firebirds, different years, different colors, all of that. So I've got a couple of questions from him for you. He unfortunately wasn't able to join, but I was able to get some questions from him. What are your favorite run or runs?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot. The short answer is the 2015, the first one. Yeah. I always kind of push back a little bit because I know they're rare and crazy expensive. I don't think it's because they fly in some incredible different way. I think it's just that they were first. So they are the standard. and everything after that is just different from the standard in some way. But like that is the essence of what a Sexton Firebird is, because it's the first one. And there was no way I wasn't going to be throwing the heck out of the first disc with my name on it. So when that came out, it was a big priority. Like, it didn't matter how it flew. I was going to find a way to love it and make it be my favorite disc. It wasn't very hard because they nailed it and they made it how I wanted them to make it. But it was just kind of, a Firebird just doesn't beat up after 1 year. So like, I was still loving my 2015s. The 2016 came out as a good disc, but my babies they weren't even that old yet. And they're like still perfect Firebirds, and they last for years. They last for 8-9 years if you don't throw them in the water. You could still be throwing it and it will still be stable enough to be usable. So all the years are useful, but that's my honest favorite. But that's the qualifier. I don't want people to go spend a ton of money expecting some revolutionary flight that you couldn't find with some of the other ones. I actually really like the 2026 for that reason. The Halo I didn't like that much. I like it when there's a wicked headwind, but we did Halo for a couple of years and I was never that sure about it. Halo was kind of a new thing and everyone was excited about it, but I didn't really believe that they could make it straight enough. Innova kind of thought they could, but the soul of the Sexton Firebird is it can't be that overstable. That's like not what it's supposed to be. So those Halo ones were too stable for my liking. So this time I insisted we got to be done with the Halo. We got to go back to the straight color glow, and I've liked that result. So I right now have a 26 in my bag, 2 2015s, 1 2026, and then if it's windy, I'll put a more overstable year. I don't really care which overstable year, but the ones I think of as overstable years are like 16, 19, 20, or any of the Halos. If I really am going to a windy place, I'll grab one of the Halos.
That is another Nate Sexton partially answering one of the questions I was already gonna ask him, and I guess a follow up on that. You talked about overstable. Brady also wanted to know what's the most understable run in your opinion.
Yeah, I think the contenders for that would be 21 and 17. That'd be my guess. But honestly, I wouldn't call myself the expert on that. Like, there's other people that have put way more time into like testing each year. I just kind of keep throwing my 15s. Obviously, any new year that comes out, I throw it for a while, have it in the bag, check it out, but I don't expect that it's possible that another year would come out and I'd like not throw 15s anymore, So it's like, I don't know. I'm almost glad in a way that the collector market has calmed down a little bit, because then I don't feel quite as weird about like throwing this insanely valuable thing, because I never really I just want to throw them.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. He actually also asked, speaking of 2015s, he asked if you have one of every 2015 stamp color locked in a vault somewhere as some sort of partial retirement fund.
No, I sold all the rare ones I had during some of those crazy years. Some of them I sold definitely too early, but I couldn't believe people were offering me that kind of money for a Frisbee. But then it got crazier and crazier and crazier. But no, I don't have any of the rare ones anymore, but I have a nice little stash of them for my throwers.
And the last one from Brady, what is the ultimate Nate Sexton Firebird? What's your favorite year, stamp, and color? What is the 1-1 of the Nate Sexton Firebirds in your opinion?
Gosh, I mean, from production or from including rare ones?
I guess including rare ones, yeah.
Okay, then it would definitely be some of those. There was a day that I went to Innova in 2015 with Macbeth, and we stamped. They don't let us have this kind of access anymore, but we got on the stamp machine and we stamped. I don't know if you guys were perceiving this or if you're too new of disc golfers, but Macbeth always used to throw these destroyers that said McPro AVR on them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they were really famous. We stamped up like 70 or 80 of those. I got a bunch of blank Firebirds. I was stamping them like matte yellow, matte purple, black, flag stamp, all these other colors that were never released. And so those all became the most valuable and sought after discs, but those are probably the coolest ones. I don't have any of them anymore, but I was pretty partial to the matte purple and the matte yellow, just being like a striking looking disc. In terms of production runs, I think there's some like kind of rainbowy, like 3-color 2015s that look really good, like a red yellow kind of transitional. But I don't know. I like them all. I kind of gravitate towards matte stamps, honestly, because I think the artwork pops better. Like the reflectiveness of
Yes.
stamps, like you kind of get lost in the. So the 2015 there is a matte white that is that's like in the production run, and
Ooh.
I kind of like the look of those because I can read it and I can see the artwork a little bit better rather than it like glinting in the sun, which looks cool too. But I think I'm kind of
Yeah.
partial to the matte.
Really, really pops. That's awesome, and I am gonna try and very quickly be able to hopefully share my screen here,
Oh, look at this.
which I think I can.
Yeah, I see
So
it.
Brady sent these over to me as his Firebird collection, a big
Yeah.
stack there. And you can see him there. You also sent this personally, and while I have this up, I just wanted to read something directly from him. He said, "Tell Nate he's the man. Thanks for inspiring me to try and master the forehand shot. Appreciate the disc he signed and sent out to me in 2019 after my accident. Can't wait to maybe throw around with him at Masters Worlds at Northwood in September." So yeah, you had sent this disc here personally to Brady when he had an accident, which is awesome to see. And he also, just to show off, he wanted to show off what his holy grail is, which is this
Oh
bad
yeah,
boy right here.
that's some nice swirls for sure. That's a 2017.
That is a pretty disc right there. But I had to show those off for
Sweet.
my boy Brady.
Yeah,
He is
absolutely.
a totally forehand player. I've never seen him throw a backhand in a tournament. Throws only forehands, and obviously loves the heck out of you and is a big collector
Sweet.
of the Firebirds. So
Sweet.
That's
Great.
crazy. I've not seen a photo of that collection before, Robbie. That's out of control.
I
But
told
like
you it was
in the
wild.
best possible way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tomorrow there is a tragic catastrophe of epic and very specific proportions. A giant chasm opens up in the earth, and the only thing that falls into it is every Sexton Firebird mold that was prepped to put together next year's run. There's
Okay.
no way to recreate them before the season. You can't choose a Firebird. What would you pick instead as your Tour Series disc?
Oh, geez. Can't have any more Firebirds.
No more Firebirds, no more fun.
Yeah, that is a lot. That is a big fun reduction. Man, I don't know what I would choose. Um, I would again kind of try to go for something that isn't already kind of oversaturated. So I throw a lot of destroyers, but I probably would try to stay out of there because it's just a crowded space. Like a lot of other people are on there, and lots of players have used it before. Maybe like we could maybe try to get on a Thunderbird or something. It's close to Firebird. The other thing I would think about maybe like a Sidewinder or something. Kind of lean into the rollers. That's a disc that I enjoy. But yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I wouldn't expect it would.
Yeah,
But yeah,
though
you never know,
the
right?
molds are all the molds are down there in Los Angeles. It is kind of an earthquake zone.
Might need to be moved to somewhere a
Yeah,
little safer for safekeeping. You don't want to. If there's one community I don't want to get on the bad side of, it's Nate Sexton Firebird collectors. They take their stuff seriously. I know that. So Nate, we so appreciative of all your time with us tonight. This has been absolutely amazing. We just have a couple last questions that we wanted to ask. And
sure.
you've been involved in disc golf for over 20 years. And in that time, you've left an imprint in the sport, both on and off the course. What do you think your legacy is in the sport, and where do you see the journey taking you from here?
Man, yeah, I've thought about this a little bit. I actually just found out it's a little less organized than some other Hall of Fames, but I just saw on Facebook the other morning that I got inducted into the Oregon Disc Golf Hall of Fame like a couple days ago. So
Congratulations.
yeah, so that's kind of exciting and kind of the beginning in a way of like my like I'm obviously in the sunset of my elite playing career. I'm gonna hopefully play some age protected stuff for a long time, but I don't think that I will put my full focus into disc golf for my entire life. I think I've done a lot of it, but I always want to stay connected to the game, and I'll always love the game, but I don't see myself like grinding putts into my old age and just trying to stay as good as I possibly can. I think I'll try to pursue some other passions as well. But as far as my legacy, I would love to be remembered as a great player, as somebody who was I want to be somebody who, when people see that I'm in their group, they go, "Oh, sweet, I get to play with Nate." That's kind of like what I hope for, or how I hope my peers see me. And then the commentary thing, I feel like a pioneer in that regard, and I would hope that that's kind of something I'm remembered for, is sort of being one of the first guys to recognize that opportunity, being one of the people who was willing to, get up earlier, stay up late, before there was any money in that, and help the media side grow, help the game grow, hopefully. I think that's the kind of stuff that I hope is my lasting legacy.
That's very well said. And continuing your run here of anticipating exactly what we're going to say next, you mentioned that one of your pieces that you would love is being someone that people would love to play with. If you could build a dream card, no Yuli, no Big Germ, but they would join for commentary, which 3 disc golfers, past or present, would you want to play with, and what course would you want to play with them?
Wow. Past or present. Are they their current selves, or are they in their primes?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think maybe in their primes would be the more interesting interpretation.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's more interesting. So then I'd have to put Ken Climo, because it would just be cool to play with him at his peak. For a long time, some guys that are at the top of my list that are generally top of my list for guys to play with are Paul Macbeth, Simon Lizotte, and Nate Doss. So they would factor in. I'm just gonna cop out and say more names than I'm allowed. I think, who else is awesome? I played with Gannon Burr today. It's incredible. So that's just I just like seeing the absolute best, and he's certainly that. He's also a funny guy, and a lot more chill than he has any right to be for being 21 and been the best player in the world for a number of years now. The fact that he's as down to earth as he is pretty amazing, I think, given his success and his young age. So he's a really phenomenal guy to play with, and just an incredible talent. But yeah, I think let me go Ken Climo, Simon Lizotte, and Paul Macbeth for my group, because Prime Simon just does some stuff you can't even believe, and then and he's funny, and then Macbeth is obviously the greatest we've got. And him in his prime is just hitting every shot, and then it would just be fun to see Climo and Macbeth battle. I mean, who doesn't want that in their primes?
Yeah, very well said. I can't poke a single hole in that. Many of our forehand proficient listeners, just to hit one more thing with you before we start to wind down, our forehand proficient listeners will be quite familiar with the Sexton hop, your trademark run-up, if you can call it a run-up, for the forehand. Is that something that you came up with yourself, or something that you picked up elsewhere? And what do you think about that makes it work so well? Because it almost feels counterintuitive, but the proof is in the pudding. It works.
Yeah, I think came up with it myself is accurate, but also implies a level of intentionality that I did not have. So it's like, it just was like how I throw, but no one ever told me to do it. No one ever really told me much about a forehand ever. My dad maybe, like back in the Ultimate days, was like, "Oh, hold it like this." But I don't really remember much in the way of anyone ever going, "Hey man, well, you should try this," because it was always my strength, and I was kind of almost always the one telling people things if people wanted to know about a forehand, even from when I was quite young. So it wasn't something that I thought up and took to the field and was like, maybe if I do this, it's going to help. It was just kind of how my body decided it wanted to throw. And I think it's more It's kind of like what you might see like a baseball player do if they had a ball way out by the warning track and they need to try to huck it all the way back to home plate. I think that's kind of more the mechanics. It's just a way to get a weight shift, you know. So I'm just using that hop to shift my weight farther back so that when that front foot does come down and my hips twist through, it's like coming with that extra force of gravity, you know, as well, where I'm like really able to lunge forward. So it's just kind of preparing to do that. But it certainly wasn't something that I like developed on purpose.
Yeah, it just came into being.
Yes.
I actually started with an X step for my forehands, and I've always been able to push them out pretty far relative to my peers, but that was when I got, you know, consistent near or sometimes north of 400 was moving from the next step to the hop, and I was like, yeah, I can't explain why this works. It just works.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe just a little more forceful with your weight shift.
Jeez, I am really bad with the mute button today, but I was going to join in and say that my forehand has it's got some, I wouldn't say a full Sexton hop, but essences of it. And I think anybody that looks at my form would be able to tell that I did watch a bunch of Nate Sexton videos back in the day. So, Nate, we have hit the last little segment we like to do with all of our first-time guests. It's called the lightning round. Just some quick questions, whatever comes to your mind first. And I've got a real softball for you first, although maybe not because you're really well-traveled and have played a ton of courses. Well, what's your favorite course?
Oh, man, I again want to say two, but lately, like tour course, Krokol in outside Oslo. I think that's the best I've played, though I haven't played Ale yet. I hope to next year, and I've heard that that's on the same level. As far as the place that I usually say when people ask me this, and if I only have one more day to play disc golf, the course I would want to go to is called Whistler's Bend, and it's in Southern Oregon, and it's where I won my first pro tournament that you mentioned earlier. It's where I've played probably as many tournaments as anywhere else. I play a doubles tournament there with my brother almost every year. It's 27 holes. It's one of the most beautiful courses I've ever played. Probably spent, between all the times I've gone there and all the camping trips, you know, I've probably spent 8 months there, you know, in terms of like all the times that I've been there for a week and a half, you know, I don't know. It's just a special place.
Amazing. And I love the way you phrase that too. I think we might have to change our phrasing on this question in the future, Robbie. If you could only play disc golf at one more place or the, you know, the last day of disc golf, that's very well said.
Yeah, where are you going?
And what is the hardest course you've ever played?
It's either Northwood Black or the Monster at Tampere.
Yeah, I think Northwood Black is bar none the course that we have received the most as an answer to that question. Ironically, too, we've had some people say it's their favorite and the hardest they've ever played, which just goes to show you how special Northwood is. Next one I got here for you, Nate. One sport to play or watch other than disc golf. What are you choosing?
Well, if I'm watching, I'd probably take basketball. I'm a Portland Trailblazers fan. I'm not good enough at basketball to really enjoy that a bunch. For me, it's probably be cycling. I really like riding my bike. So for my participation, I'd probably take cycling. I also really like watching cycling, but I probably watch more basketball than anything else.
Hey, I had
the second cycling answer we've gotten to that after Canadian Sophia Dunica.
Yeah. She's phenomenal. I've ridden with her a couple times. She's out of my league.
Yeah, she's an animal.
She is a beast.
Yeah, I had the Tour de France Femme on one screen this morning while I was working away some emails on the other.
I have it on my other tab. I'm finishing the highlights after I get off this show with you guys.
Oh, well, I was going to talk about what happened in the end there with Demi Vollering, but maybe I won't get into it. But yeah, it was a great finale. Back on track. Lightning round, what song makes you instantly turn the volume to max?
Probably my favorite band is a band called Dawes out of Los Angeles, and they have a song called When My Time Comes. That is a one that I would probably crank it up a little bit.
All right, that's getting added to my Spotify queue to check out at some point soon.
Yeah.
Nate, you are no stranger to being on the road, driving to lots of disc golf tournaments through your career. What is your favorite place to stop for food while you're out on a road trip?
Well, I mean, some actual local cool place, but that's not a very good answer. The road is a hard place to eat. Any place that anyone's ever heard of is not that great, but I would probably throw a nod to Chipotle as like a solid option. I'm not shying away from Chipotle. I feel like I can get something reasonably healthy there. But my real answer would be some local cool place that, is serving up something that you're not going to get everywhere else.
I think that's the better answer anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. And Nate, what movie never gets old no matter how many times you watch it?
Big Lebowski, it comes to mind. Every time I happen to catch it, it's just hilarious.
It's an absolute classic. And one more for you, Nate. The most important one, of course, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Man, there's so many good ones. I might take because I've traveled so much. I think teleportation appeals to me because I could cut all that out and I could just like if I could bring my family and I could teleport, that's pretty sweet. A cool thing about that would be I wouldn't be like burdened with like I gotta save the world. Like I can't really do anything that great. I can just travel for free and go wherever I want, whenever I want, play any tournament I want, and then go home and sleep in my bed after I'm done. That sounds pretty good.
I am absolutely with you, especially with the recent thought of flying back from Edmonton after Canadian Nationals, which isn't really that long of a flight, Edmonton to Toronto, but it can be long enough that you realize that sitting on an airplane, especially when you're a bigger guy like me, not the most enjoyable place to be. So smart man, Nate,
Yeah.
I am right on board with you on that one. So that is it for the lightning round, Nate. Before we let you go, and thank you once again so much for giving us your time, do you have any shout outs that you would like to give or any final comments? The floor we will leave open for you.
Oh man, I mean, we talked a lot about Sexton Firebirds, so I got to thank all the throwers and the collectors out there. Without all the passionate people, my career would have ended years ago. So a big thank you to the Jomez watchers, the Firebird throwers, the people that have kind of made all of my successes possible because, without the fans and without people being excited about what we do, there'd be no point in doing it. So just a shout out to all those people.
Well, Nate, it has been truly an honor to have you here. As I have said a couple times, one of my biggest influences when I was getting into disc golf and discovering, I'd been playing for like almost 10 years before I discovered Jomez and saw better players and heard commentary kind of telling me what it is that I'm even looking at, what a hyzer is and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And here I am now, all these years later, hosting a podcast and getting to interview you. So big full circle moment for me and for all of us here on Missed Mando. So thank you so much once again for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
And we will be right back here on Missed Mando.
Welcome back to Miss Mando. What a goddamn interview, Robbie. Dude, it's going to take me a few days, maybe a few weeks to wrap my head around the fact that we just had Nate Sexton on the podcast for an hour and a half. That is crazy. But welcome back to Miss Mando. Robbie and I are going to get our heads screwed back on. It might take us a few minutes, but we'll try. And we're going to try starting with some Ontario news, and we'll hop into some registrations here. So as we're recording this on August the 5th, we got some registrations going on over on Disc Golf Scene. We have the Birdie Bash at Pittock Conservation Area. This is a 3-disc Prodigy Challenge with shortened tees to increase aces, birdies, and fun. To get points during the 2 rounds. Lunch is included. Registration is opening in 2 days, probably the day you're listening to this podcast, if you're listening on time, August 7th, with the event coming up on September 26th. We also have the Stones Throw Fall Open, which is always a fixture in my Ontario event list for the year. It is one of my favorite events, both the fall and the spring open. Stones Throw is just a beautiful course, and there's nothing better than disc golf in the fall. So if you can get there, get there. Registration opens August 10th, and the event will be on October 10th. And as a Brawny local, I have to say, the only thing that can contend with Stones Throw is the Bronte Creek Classic 29. 29 years Bronte has been doing a classic. This year it's going to be October 24th and 25th. We're going to have registration opening on August 8th, just for members only. So I'm going to see if I can sneak myself in there during that time. And then Gen registration opens on August 24th. We'll be playing 2 rounds of 27 holes. And those of you who play Brawny on the regular know that Brawny does not have 27 holes. So there's going to be some innovation. Going to use some new parts of the park. It's going to be awesome. Get yourself out there. Don't be silly. Don't miss a classic. You'll be kicking yourself after. We also want to flag a few events that still have spaces available. There is the USDGC Doubles Qualifier at Abbey Gardens on August 15th, which still has spots. The Cedar Creek Challenge on August 29th and 30th. The 29th is pro in advance, and the 30th is everybody else. And the Nickel City Open, which is going to be held Labor Day weekend in Sudbury. And with that, Robbie, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yes, sir. Lots of great tournaments coming up as I just absolutely whip my phone onto my desk. If anybody heard that noise, that's what that was. I just also wanted to give a quick shout out to another event going down at Hope Goat. The Hope Goat Disc Swap being hosted by Mason Raymond. There will be running from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. There will be a bunch of disc swapping, so bring your discs, make some deals with some other players, followed by a 11 a.m. shotgun start round, listed as a casually competitive round of singles play, where you get to test your new discs. So casually competitive. I don't know how well those two go together, but it will be a blast out there nonetheless. So if you are in the area and free, that is running on August 23rd, and you can find that on Disc Golf Scene as well. Moving on to our tournament recaps, we start our recaps with a rare trip outside of Ontario here on the podcast and head to Grande Prairie, Alberta for the 2026 Canadian National Championships, which saw 389 total players across 28 divisions looking to be crowned a national champion. In the FPO division, Sophia Dunica shot a super hot 1,006 rated neg 7 in the first round to take a 6-stroke lead over Colleen McInnes, and following a 974 rated neg 5 in round 2, she extended her lead to 13 strokes over Colleen, with Joe Henderson and Annika Wiebe tied for third. Colleen was able to get a stroke back in the final round en route to a second place finish, but Sophia's lead was just too much as she took down her second career national title, winning by 12 strokes, with Joe Henderson finishing on the podium in third. Over in MPO, Thomas Gilbert shot a 1033 rated -4 in the first round to take a 2-stroke lead over Sam Easty and Eric Wiebe. And in the second round, a 1010 rated neg 3 would extend Thomas's lead to 4 heading into finals. Thomas started the final round with an eagle on hole 1, followed by 3 birdies to go neg 5 through only 4 holes, and he wouldn't look back from there, shooting an absolutely scorching 1054 rated -14 to take down the win by 5 strokes for his third career national title. New friend of the show, Nate Sexton, shot a 1045 rated neg 13 in the final round to finish in second, and Max Gitnig shot a 1036 rated -12 to move up 6 spots into third. In the FP40 division, Elizabeth DeVries takes down the win as the only competitor in the field. Meanwhile, in MP40, friend of the show, Chris O'Zolins shot a 1012 rated -1 in the first round to take a 2-stroke lead over Bogdan Zafranowicz. I hope I nailed that pronunciation. and a 980 rated +1 extended his lead to 3. In the final round, Oz would put his foot down with a 991 rated -7 to take down the win by 5 strokes for his second straight MP40 national title, with Thomas Kuhn finishing in second and Bogdan rounding out the podium in third. In the top amateur divisions, Hannah Porter goes wire to wire in FA1, averaging 855 over 3 rounds to take down the win by 7 strokes over Carissa Garland, with Brittany Cavers finishing in third. And in MA1, Ontario's own Nathaniel Renton and Michael Vasilenik found themselves in a 4-way tie for first with Quinn Cochran and Judah Hawks after they all shot 991 rated +2s in the first round. But after a 1003 rated -2 in the second round, it was Quinn holding a 1-stroke lead over Judah, with Cole Cochran only 3 shots off the lead. After a tight battle through 17 holes, Quinn and Judah were tied for the lead with 1 hole to play. And after Quinn stuck his disc on the island and Judah went OB, Quinn was able to lay up and tap in for the win, taking down the national title. Galen, let's throw it over to you for some of the usual Shawnee G whatnot. Let's hear some aces, some close battles. What do we got?
Yes, sir. Closest I've ever been to playing in Grand Prairie is when I got out to play in Drumheller, Alberta. So I don't have a lot of course insight, and I wasn't there. But thank you for taking us home with those recaps there, Robbie. Yeah, so aces, we can shout out Zach Drieger in MPO, Judah Hawks in MA1, and Kai Louis Smith, the course killer himself, with an ace in MJ18. We also had a few single stroke division winners. We had Graham Garlick taking it down, amazing name, great in dinners and also at disc golf. Pierre Boucher, Graham in MP50, Pierre Boucher in MA55 with the 1-stroke win. And uncle of friend of the pod, Dan Gilbert, winning in MA75 in a playoff. Way to go, Graham, Pierre, and Dan for those close wins. We love to see it.
Absolutely. And I will give a little insider story because I do find it somewhat hilarious. MA75 going to a playoff, and Dan took home the win on a forfeit. The guy, I forget the player's name that he was playing against. They got to the playoff. He said, I got like 800 kilometers to drive. I don't want to stick around any longer. I got to get going. Dan, the national title is yours. And handed the win to Dan. A pretty uneventful ending to the tournament, but big congrats to Dan nonetheless. 2 national titles at the same event for the Gilbert clan. Absolutely love to see it. Alrighty, Galen. We head next to Guelph, Ontario, and the beautiful courses of Eastview and Vic Park for the 2026 Guelph Royale. You know why they call it the Royale?
Because of the metric system?
Look at the big brain on Brad! You know we had to do it.
This is what Sean gets for sitting it out. It's us making Pulp Fiction references about the Guelph Royale. This is on him, if anything.
Absolutely. It was absolutely perfect timing that we talk about the Guelph Royale with Cheese when it's just us on the show here. The Guelph Royale, a PDGA B tier, and the next stop on the Ontario Tour, which saw 143 players across 18 divisions looking for a top 3 finish to qualify for provincials. Cam Zanini had a 5-stroke lead after 2 rounds at Eastview, but then it moved to Vic Park Valley, and MPO was a blowout, with Marty Hendel taking it down by 11 strokes over Cam. Marty shot a insane bogey-free neg 13 final round, 1053 rated. Absolutely insane from the Ontario legend. Chantel Badinsky went open to close and took it down by 4 strokes over Sandy Hendel in FPO. MP40 was the Scotty J show, dominating with an 11-stroke win over Greg Grutenbohr. No FP40, but White Spruce's Susan Avery took down the solo win over in FP50. In MA1, Corey Hunter, surprise, surprise, takes down the win, beating Austin Hill and Graham Drummond by 5 strokes, who tied for second. Got to give a shout out to my boy, Austin Hill. Now, 2 MA1 events in his career since he's rated out of MA2, and he has finished second in both of them, proving he belongs in the MA1 division. Over in FA1, Kyrie McKegg took the trophy with a 3-stroke win over Kimberly Raposo. And White Spruce's Mike Pelly took it down by a stroke over Rizzolino Gandillo. Hope I got that right. By nailing a 40-foot uphill putt for birdie on the very last hole at Vic Park Valley. White Spruce. Got to give one of those for Mike Pelly. Galen, let's throw it over to you for some of your thoughts coming out of the Guelph Royale with cheese.
Yes, sir. 2 thoughts to start you off. Austin Hill is still sandbagging. Get him an MPO ASAP because he is running over MA1. And Rizzolino Gandillo, also, little known fact, disc golfer extraordinaire, also mafia boss and owner of an Italian restaurant, because that is the most Italian name I have ever heard, and I would like very much to meet this person at my earliest possibility. We will shout out some aces and a 1-stroke win. Shout out to Shayla Ostapowicz for the FA50 ace on Eastview's red hole number 5, 208 feet. Nice ace to get. Way to take it down. And Carlo Fergielli playing MA60, aced Eastview red hole 7 for 231 feet of beauty. And we have just one stroke win to shout out, and it is Mike Pelly taking down MA40 by a single stroke. And this is the one and only time you will hear me, Pelly, it's for you. Spruce! Robbie, back over to you.
That is a rarity as a avid Bronte Club representative like yourself, Galen. That might ruffle some feathers in some group chats somewhere. I will make sure that we clip that and send it to all of your group chats just so you can get ridiculed. But much deserved for not officially a friend of the podcast as a guest, but a friend of all of us here on the podcast, Mike Pelly. He deserves the White Spruce call. Also, sick ace. Red hole 7 at Eastview. That's the one that when we had the missed Mando Mayhem, we had the gap through the Y, through the branches. So I'm really curious if they went through that gap. Now there wasn't a giant spider web in the way this time, like there was at the missed Mando Mayhem, but hopefully they took the triple Mando at least, because that would be really cool. But awesome ace nonetheless. And we are going to move on.
Galen, this time he had to take off and go to bed, deal with the family, and let you in on a little secret. It's actually the next day right now, but we can just keep that between us. And our next recap takes us to the Ottawa area and the fantastic double course property of Ettyville Superspin for the 2026 Ettyville Open, which saw 31 total players across 8 divisions battling it out over 3 rounds. In MPO, Jacob Mainville opened the tournament with a 1,007 rated -9 to take a 3-stroke lead over Carter Yeomans, and a 967 rated -2 in the second round would extend his lead to 5 heading into the final round. In that final round, Jacob would once again shoot the hot round with a 991 rated -6 to take down the win by 7 strokes over Carter, with Adam Maria finishing on the podium in 3rd. This was Jacob's 3rd win of the season so far. In MP50, Eric Vinette averaged 945 over the 3 rounds, including a 955 rated final round to take down the win by 6 strokes over Mike O'Keefe, with John Pytel rounding out the podium in 3rd. No MA1 or FA1 at this event, but in MA2, Travis Hunt went wire to wire, averaging 28 points above his rating en route to a dominant 12-stroke win, with Michael Reed finishing 2nd and Scott Cole finishing in 3rd. This was Travis's 1st win of the season and 3rd of his career. No aces and no close battles to shout out here either, so we will move on, but always good to see another tournament out at Ettyville. Moving on to our next tournament, the Yeet in the Heat, seeing disc golf return to La Fortune. Its long-awaited tournament return. I know it's been quite a few years, I believe, since there had last been a tournament here. And in the MPO division, James Atkinson shot a 10-14 final round to win by 7 strokes over Jeff Moulton, with Ryan McWaters finishing in third. In the FPO division, Kat Johnson wins by 16 strokes over Stephanie Hall and averaged 33 strokes above her rating in the process. MA1 was the Brower battle, with Nathan Brower beating Ben Brower by 2 strokes. And in FA1, Chelsea Pike beat Victoria Fenninger by 10. No aces at this event, but a couple one-stroke wins that Shawnee G put in here for me to shout out. Jason Judge Havoc Baston took it down by a stroke in MA40. Darlene Teal wins by a stroke in FA40. And Corwin Andrews gets it done in MA2. Well done, everybody there. Moving on now to the Northern Ontario Championships up in St. Joseph Island, just south of Sault Ste. Marie. Beautiful, beautiful weekend. -1 round where it was absolutely heavy rain. I was out there for this event, as I mentioned in the intro, with Galen. Well, let's get right into it. It was a nail-biter in the MPO division, wink, with Chris O'Zolin squeaking out a win over Spencer Young by, let's see here, 18 strokes. Yes, quite the close victory. 18-stroke win for Oz there. He absolutely dominated, with Spencer Young finishing in second and Noah Rudy finishing in third. Over in FPO, Alicia Hums, another nail-biter here. Alicia takes it down by 15 strokes over Alyssa Saunders, with Danny McBride finishing in third. In MP40, Dennis Barnes takes it down by 18 strokes over Mark Wood. Awesome job there. No FA1 division here, but in the MA1 division, and I will point out, Sean has written here, no one of note whatsoever won MA1, which, I mean, let's give Sean credit. That's partially accurate, but no. I took down the win in MA1. It was an awesome battle. I had a 4-stroke lead after the first round, was down by 3 going after the second round, going into the final round after Luke Stacy had a really hot round. He had the lead, and then I was down by 7 strokes at one point in the final round, but was able to grind it back and take down the win by 2 there. Finally got my qualification spot to provincials, thank goodness, so I can stop thinking about that and can actually sign up for provincials now, thank goodness. But an absolutely awesome battle that I had there against Luke, and JF Menard rounds out the podium in third. Let's see here, there were 2 aces in the field. Thomas Hums hit the Woodland hole 18, which I think was just standard hole 18, sorry, I'm reading this wrong. Woodland 18, hole 9, 187-foot hole. I believe that was the pound ace hole. Thomas Hums gets the ace there. And Luke Stacy, MA1, Mountain View, short 7, 233. This was in the final round when he was on the card with me. I had just battled back to tie him for the lead. I step up. I absolutely park a perfect forehand to like 5 feet. Thinking, all right, he's not going to take the lead back from me here. He's, at least we'll both birdie. And nope, he aces right in my face, takes the lead back. Awesome ace there. And there were no 1-stroke wins in the field to shout out. Moving on now to our last sanctioned tournament recap, we go to the NADGT Canada Lakewood Challenge, which is a amateur-only event, being the NADGT. But I believe this was a qualification event for NADGT Nationals, which I probably should have looked this up, but I'm not sure exactly where that'll be, but usually a little later in the year, somewhere in Canada. I think last year it was out in Calgary or somewhere in Alberta. I think I could be totally getting this wrong. Probably am. But anyways, there was no FA1 division at this event, but in the MA1 division, a name that is becoming pretty well known to us here on the podcast, Nate Framst. He shoots a 987 rated first round to take a 1-stroke lead over Kyle DeGost and Frank Reddycop, who both shot 974 rated neg 10s. And then in the final round, Nate was able to shoot a neg 10 to take down a 2-stroke win, averaging 980 for the event. Absolutely incredible there. That is definitely a player to look out for in terms of maybe getting into the MPO division sometime soon and starting to make some noise, because he is incredibly talented. Twice already this year, we've talked about Nate having the highest rated round at a tournament, beating any MPO round rating with how hot he can shoot sometimes. So love to see that there. All right. And no aces to shout out at the event, but in MA2, Caius Belhumer had a tiebreaker win over Derek Oswick. In MA4, Aiden Hall had a tiebreaker win over Jeff Room. And in MJ12, Simon Wilms wins over Caleb Willems. Congrats to everybody there. Moving on now to what is, of course, the most important tournament recap that we have in this episode. The Mist Mando Mayhem 6. Once again, the Mist Mando crew out and about on a course, putting an insane amount of Mayhems out there. Or Mayhems, an insane amount of Mandos to make some Mayhem. Some other obstacles and whatnot. And Shawnee G has written up the recap for this and has started this with a parental advisory and explicit summary. This is the first time that I've seen this on the Mist Mando podcast, but I'm going to read this word for word as Sean has written out, as requested by Sean himself. So here we go. The most hotly anticipated event of the year, well, at least since the Mayhem 5, saw 80 players on 40 teams battle in extremely humane weather. I don't know if that's supposed to say humid. Weather conditions to take home the most coveted trophies in the sport, really any sport. The Mayhem 6 finger blasted its way onto the Paris disc golf course on Monday to bring misery and despair to all who were foolish enough to participate. This event had it all. More than 20 Mandos, the Glory Hole Mando, the Archipelago, ripped revenge cards, a staggering amount of mulligans, caution shit disc golfers, safety vests, far too many raffle prizes, and some new innovations in ridiculousness on the classic Wheel of Mayhem. This time the money was being raised for the White Sand First Nation, and Sean has in here, I can't wait to hear Robbie pronounce this one. The Numegu Sisagagun, I did my best, First Nation, who have suffered devastating losses in the Northern Ontario wildfires, and to make matters worse, have had Robbie try to pronounce their name. Hey, I did my best, Sean, okay? All right? Preemptively chirping me, didn't even have any faith in me. $3,300 raised and lots of food raised, donated to the Six Nations Food Bank, with big thanks to Bon Bon for facilitating that and suggesting the First Nations wildfire relief money donation. One guy bought $310 in mulligans, 32 mulligans total. Absolutely amazing. The pro division was almost hotly contested, with Team Atkin Swing and Walter Miss, James Atkinson and Michael Walters, having only a 3-stroke lead, I think. Honestly, I didn't check, but I think that is right. With 3 holes to go over Team All Day Long and Twice on Tuesdays of Bon Bon and Marty Hendel, subbing in for Sandy Hendel, who got called into work. Unfortunately for Bon Bon and Marty, a certain asshole tournament director specifically arranged the starting holes so that their last 2 holes were the Wheel of Mayhem and the Archipelago, from which there is no hope of survival, but it is funny as hell. When all hope was lost, Marty decided to just go buck wild on the Archipelago and launch disc after disc, a score-immolating move I deeply respect, and took a 12 on the hole, which was nowhere near the worst score on the day. Atkinson Walter carded the only below par round of the event with a neg 1, truly a remarkable achievement in Mayhem course design, much more than tournament play. I don't know if that entirely makes sense, but I'm just reading this word for word from Sean. In the AM division, there were 27 teams battling it out. Sean here, okay, I'm tired already of writing long summaries. I don't know how Robbie does it, so I'm going to do it. I don't know if I was supposed to read that part. This show is just going off the rails. At the end of the round, teams Send It and Regret It, Trevor and Brooklyn Okrafka, were tied with the early birdies, Stephen Edwards and Otis Krasaniskas. However, for the second event in a row, a team in contention had in their possession a ripped revenge card that allowed them to take strokes off their score, and with that boss move, it was Send It and Regret It who took home the trophies. In the female division, we had 4 teams battling it out. This isn't an ultimate tournament. Stephanie Hall and Sarah Biro, they took it down by 12 strokes over teams the Tree Magnets, Chiara Perrin Bouchard and Toti Pellegrind, and Yogi and Boo Boo, which was Boo Boo and Lin Nguyen, who tied for second place. In fourth place was Team Espresso, Agnieszka and Mayapona. My apologies on all of the probable mispronunciations, who were a new player and very first-time player and took home the most important more throws, more fun trophy. Sean also has here aces, ha 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 ha, no, and close battles, all uppercase, nope. So that's the recap from Sean. Sean needs to get better at writing these recaps. My goodness, I could hardly decipher what he was trying to get out there. But we cannot wait for Missed Mando 7. Stay tuned for details on where that will be. We are already trying to plan it out. Hopefully, at least, to be honest, it's all on Sean. But we can't wait for Mayhem 7. And thank you, everybody that came out to Mayhem 6. It was an absolute blast. And we came very close to getting to our all-time money donated total from an event. And the event that it's competing with, the White Spruce event, had a ODSA raffle, which included a pound bag. So definitely had some juiced numbers because of that. So for our highest event total of just doing everything on our own. So super proud. And thank you to everybody that came out and was super generous. We are going to end now with a little bit of Pro Tour recap talk. We just had the Ledgestone Open, which I was up in Sault Ste. Marie for the weekend, so I didn't get to watch basically any of it. I did try to tune in to the very end of the final round, for the MPO final round, as I was driving home Sunday evening from Sault Ste. Marie. Let me give you a little hint. The internet connection when you're driving in between Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury, it gets pretty spotty at times. So didn't really get to watch much. But in the FPO division, Evelina Salonen takes down a dominant win, going into the final round, actually trailing by 1 stroke to Holland Hanley, but coming out with a 8-stroke win over Ella Hansen, with Hannah Blomroos and Katrina Allen tying for third place. I believe that's now maybe like 6 events in a row where Evelina and Silva have gone back-to-back winning. It's gone Silva, Evelina, Silva, Evelina, Silva, Evelina, I think at least. So incredible out of the Finnish ladies there. And over on the MPO side, going into the final round, Gannon Burr had a 3-shot lead over Sullivan Tipton, with Luke Taylor 4 shots back of the lead, which normally would make you think that this was going to be Gannon's to walk in, but he struggled a little bit more in the final round, only shooting a -5. It was looking for a while like Sully was going to be able to walk it in. He had a 2-shot lead with 2 holes to play, but he unfortunately goes double bogey, triple bogey on the final 2 holes to drop back into third. And Luke Taylor comes up absolutely clutch, birdieing the last 6 holes from 13 on to take down the 1-stroke win over Gannon for his first Elite Series win. Congratulations to Luke, a friend of the show. If you haven't seen that, go back and check out our interview with Luke Taylor. That was a great time having him on the show, and big congratulations to him there. I believe there should be some Canadian content to talk about in this event. Yes, a shout out to the Canadians in the field, Chantel Badinsky making her return to the Pro Tour. I don't think she's played a tour event so far this year, making her return, tied for 15th finish. Amazing job there, Chantel. And Rebecca Dawn finishes just outside, I believe, if I just go back to round 3 here, Rebecca, I'm pretty sure, had a really good third round. She shot a -3, which was 966 rated, and that got her only one stroke back of making the cut line for the final round. So unfortunately missed the cut. Finished tied for 44th. I'm sure not Rebecca's, not the way that she would have liked to have this weekend go, but she has had a fantastic season out there on the Pro Tour. And of course, we here at Mist Mando are super proud of her. And I believe that should do it here for us on Mist Mando. Nothing else to talk about, I don't think. So good luck to everybody playing in some upcoming tournaments. We've got the Wooden Sky coming up. We've got a Nico's Drive event in Stratford. USDGC doubles qualifier. I believe that's in Guelph. I could be wrong. I believe that's Guelph. The legendary Flats Classic is coming up soon, and the Green Lane Open, which is, I believe, not the next. I think Wooden Sky would be the next Ontario Tour. So the second next Ontario Tour stop. So good luck to everybody out there looking for a provincials qualification spot. And for Sean Galbraith and Galen Naidu-Harris, I am Robbie Holden. This has been Mist Mando, and we will see ya on the course.